Hello and welcome to our session. We invite you to share with us the processes of developing and harnessing folk music as resources for education. And this is a report from 5 countries, the countries that are represented by the people you see on the screen. I want to welcome you, and I want to urge that as you listen to us, maybe there's some similarities that you have also experienced in your various regions, and we hope that you'll find some, whatever we say will find resonance with yourself. The concept behind what we're talking about, the value of music material that is derived from the learner's linguistic community, has been brought to us, to our attention, as being a good resource for music teaching and learning. In the past, ISME has supported some projects that ended up collecting, analyzing, etc., some local resources which have been made available for teaching music from various regions of the world. Beyond ISME, there are other studies which have also documented ways in which locally available music resources have been used to instill more than music knowledge, to instill cultural knowledge, and to instill other types of information, other types of learning that enhance the children's holistic growth. Since ISME has a global coverage, we believe that we should create space for music educators and researchers to learn from one another. In this symposium, we present results of investigations and programs conducted in Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Malaysia, and the Netherlands. We interrogate modalities that have been employed for applying these resources in teaching. And then we also look at ways of developing illustrations for educating early childhood learners through music art material. And we hope that our recommendations can help us to enhance global citizenship education, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 4. And we want to do this through musical arts. Our presenters, Akosua Addo and Justina Addo from Ghana, Michel from the Netherlands, Ramona from Malaysia, Nahla from Egypt, and myself, Emily, from Kenya. You are most welcome. And so over to you, Akosua, so that you could share with us, Akosua and Justina, you could share with us what we have from Ghana.
Thank you very much. Ghana is making lots of strides in creating folk materials for children. We will present a summary of the current developments in the documentation of web-based materials and printed folk materials.
We realized that there were not enough creative arts resources in print or on web as teaching materials. Therefore, the type of teaching learning materials used for teaching creative arts at the early grade level demands considering materials listed in the national curriculum, and then reviewing print and web-based materials for cultural relevance as well as global reach. A semi-structured interview guide developed consisting of 13 items and a list of Ghana Education Service proposed teaching and learning materials were captured from the early grade national curriculum and used with 6 creative arts teachers.
We conducted a content analysis of the printed materials that we received from suggestions from the teachers and also the web-based materials.
In our search for printed materials for teaching at the early grade level, we realized that the standard textbooks for creative art prepared by Ghana Education Service is yet to be published. Teachers only used books that were available on the market and related to the curriculum. 2 books reviewed by us, by Henry Ajay Amankwa and Francis Benjamin Appiah and Martha Ankoma, were reviewed. These books were related to the Ghanaian culture, art, and music. Even though Appiah and Ankoma linked parts of their content to some foreign cultures, they dwelled more on Ghanaian culture, which is more familiar to the Ghanaian pupils and teachers and confirms Addo, Amos, and Enki 2017, who found that children grasp concept better when culturally relevant instructional materials are used in teaching them. The pictures, as you can see on the screen, and the text presented in these books were geared towards Ghanaian content and could only be relevant globally in terms of language of publication and also to learn about Ghanaian art and culture as a foreigner.
Teachers turned to the World Wide Web when they needed additional information. The teachers we interviewed used Google, Pinterest, and DuckDuckGo to find materials for their lessons. When I searched Google, I found two of interest. The book in school is a step-by-step guide for developing murals and connecting across the curriculum to English and other creative arts areas. Children in this site discuss their aesthetic choices, group dynamics, and time management. Ghana Rocks, a regional guide to Ghanaian crafts, is a holistic view of Ghanaian folk resources with links to well-known artists across the countries. Because both of these sites did not have anything on music, I turned to the next search engine, Pinterest, where I found a lot of material for tourists in crafts and music. In Pinterest, I found topical links like the top 10 traditional Ghanaian African dances, which gives a surface overview of dances from several African countries with the same background music accompanying the dances. The DuckDuckGo search engine, a new one for me, yielded sites for popular music genres and useful for teachers on that subject.
The curriculum is new, and the Ghana Education Service is yet to produce prescribed books. Teachers use any related resources they can access. They need materials that highlight differentiated learning. Without a set standard for what to use or website, the quality will vary across schools. There were indeed also schools without electricity, and therefore attempting an internet resource will be a challenge. A big bass drum, our colonial legacy, used for marching was always available for the assembly, even though there is a lack of indigenous resources for teaching.
Teachers stress the need for more training. The Ghana Education Service will need to bring together a group of artists and teachers from varying experiences to create resources for schools. We also need subject area supervisors and coaches, as the teachers told us. We also need a mandate on what specific local resources must be available in all schools, a small group of them. And then because we need a place to assess quality, we are establishing the Creative Arts in Education Network as to support the creating of resources for arts learning that will serve as a clearinghouse for quality, accessibility, and the dissemination of arts resources for schools. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Akosua and Justine, for your presentation. And now I'd like to continue with my part. Let's see if it works. Man and Technique. Yes, it does. Welcome, everyone. The Netherlands. So how can I go to the next slide? Yes, here. The Netherlands has a long tradition regarding music education. At about 750 after Christ, the first convent schools were founded, the so-called Schola Cantorum. It was in the 19th century that singing became compulsory in elementary schools, 1857 to be exact, and only in 1920 singing became compulsory in teacher education. As you can see in this slide, there is a painting of Jan Steen. It shows a school in the 17th century, a rural school, and to be honest, the teachers in that time were hardly able to read and write, let alone teach singing. Initially, singing focused on teaching virtues, religion, patriotism, and nature. I go to my next slide. Music education changed a lot. The goals shifted towards singing and music itself. It was also the time of Karel Orff and Sultan Kodai, and in the Netherlands, Willem Gerels, who adopted elements from the Orff and Kodai approaches. The repertoire broadened enormously, as you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. Songbooks like these. I have two here. I hope you can see them. They're very small, but also quite thick. Were very popular for singing at schools, but also in scouting activities, etc. If we continue to the 21st century, and that's on the next slide, we see that the repertoire has become more diverse. It includes pop music, jazz, world music nowadays, and more traditional repertoire is still used. However, the field of music education seems to be divided. There are many traditional approaches versus the singing popular music, and it seems to be you have to do one or another, you can't do both. And it leads to four major issues I'd like to address, because I'm working on a research project, the canon of Dutch folk songs. A canon is not only a song, but it's also a list of things you should think that should be incorporated in a cultural heritage. So can we make a list of 50 songs that all children in the Netherlands should be able to sing? Now, if you look at this slide, you see the first three issues addressed. And the first one is the discussion of whether you should sing classical music, traditional music, or popular repertoire. Maybe a non-issue for music educators, but for general classroom teachers it is. There are many questions and how do you say? Now let's stick to the questions about whether songs are age or developmental appropriate. Sometimes we see songs sang by toddlers, for example, that should be sung by 12-year-olds. But it sounds so nice. So what's age appropriate and what's developmental appropriate? And there is an issue with the education of classroom teachers. I teach in a teacher education department, but unfortunately there's not much time to teach music, and that leads to sometimes problematic situations with teaching music done by classroom teachers. And last, and it's a very important issue, that it includes inclusive repertoire. So do we have repertoire that is suitable for all children? And we are talking about gender, social, economical status, ethnic minorities, religion and beliefs, and abilities versus disabilities. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you see, for example, a Chinese song. It's a very nice song when you're a white Dutch person, but when you are Chinese, you might be a little bit offended when you see that it's mainly about Chinese food. Or in the bottom of this slide, a big feast in the Netherlands. It's called Sinterklaas, like Santa Claus in the US. It's a white bishop, and he has helpers, and the helpers, they are black. And we never saw this as, we never wanted to offend anyone, but black people see this as, they link this to slavery. So this should be changed now. And on the top of this slide, you see a picture that comes to a song about, or actually it's a rap about Cinderella. And there are not so many songs for the LGBT community. And this one refers to Cinderella, who is not interested in a prince, but is looking for a princess. Now, the research has not been finished yet, but I hope to be able to publish about it soon. Thank you very much. Ramona, maybe you can continue.
Yes, thank you, Michel. Yes, let me set my screen up. Okay, so hi everyone. I'll be speaking to you about Malay folk songs from Malaysia. This is a project that we embarked on in 2017 in collaboration, myself from UITM, University Technology Mara in Malaysia, and my esteemed colleague and dear friend, Gilbert de Grey from Belgium. So first, the purpose of the project. The main purpose is to preserve the heritage of Malay folk songs from Malaysia. So in this project, we aim to make Malay folk songs more accessible to children, youth, and the local and international communities by creating piano and art song arrangements of the Malay folk songs. So we were lucky to get the support of our university and also the Malaysian Association for Music Education. So in the first phase of our project, we focused on several activities, namely identifying the Malay folk songs which are already in the public domain. So thereby it would not be a copyright issue. Then the arrangement of each of the 15 folk songs for beginner piano, piano solo, piano four hands, and voice and piano. Then the publication of the arrangements in 4 book scores, and after which the performances of all the arrangements were recorded and published in 4 CDs. So these are some of the the activities of phase 1. So first we had the the arrangement, and then the recording sessions, and then we had promotions where we had the launch of the books and CDs. We had concerts and performances and workshops as well. And there was also some media coverage for visibility of the project in line with the objectives of our project. Then here I'd like to share with you some narratives from the children who were involved in the project and played the beginner piano music. So we have Remedios, who speaks about, who says that I'm touched by the beautiful Malay traditional music and proud of presenting it. Chloe is a young lady with very few words, so she said that she was very inspired through her involvement with the project. And we have here, I think we have, I can't see that part of the screen. Okay, so anyway, you might be able to see that this young man said that he was not exposed to Malay folk songs, not even in his early school days. And so he was a bit reluctant to play the pieces at first, but when he started to play those pieces, he found it accessible. And here some narratives from our supporters. So we were lucky also to get support from the industry, namely Yamaha Music Malaysia, who sponsored piano and all that and instruments for our performances, and Searchy Foundation, an NGO and humanitarian organization who again sponsored venue for us, and a very strong support from the Belgian embassy in Malaysia, namely from the His Excellency the Ambassador himself. So they write a few words here. And so what's next, or what's in the future for the Malay folk songs from Malaysia project? So it'd be phase 2. So we have plans with publication of more Malay folk song CDs and scores. So we only got 15 this first round. And then so we want to go for more, because there's a lot more that's there, but no one knows about and people don't listen to, especially our young. So in CDs and scores, and we're looking at other arrangements. This time we focus more on piano and in art song, but we want to look at other arrangements, orchestra, wind orchestra, etc. And then more concerts and workshops, again for visibility, feedback study with the people, or to investigate the opinions and the comments and the feedback from our target groups, development of teaching materials so that teachers can actually use the materials that or the music that we have collected and documented, and then seminar on Malay folk songs and publications, and more publications, of course. Lastly, I'd like for you to have a listen to one of the Malay folk songs. So remember I said there were 15, so this is one of them. It's called Ala Canggung. So, and each one of the 15 folk songs are arranged in 4 different styles. So we have for beginner piano, voice and piano, piano for hands, and piano solo. I can't play all of them. I'll play a few of them and not the entire piece. Yes. So at least you'll have a feel for it. So we'll start with maybe beginner piano, which the children played. It there. So another arrangement for voice and piano. The same piece.
Allah Canggung, macila maci Canggung, Canggung Canggung, lali lali, nasi kunyit sayang gulai lah yang ayam tamanala ayam dalam langala ayam, hai sedap ka ayam, mari dimakan di batas lintang.
Okay, all right. So maybe one more, the piano for hands. Okay, so that's basically the Malay folk songs from Malaysia project in a nutshell. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. So we'll go to Nahla.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
So, hello everyone. So, thank you, Ramona, so much. My presentation. I'm having a technical problem. So today I'm happy to share with you two workshops that were done with children to help them compose with graphic notation, incorporating folk tales that was, you know, for kids. And the thing is, why folk tales? Because it is so attractive materials to use. It supports original local identity, and there is a use of idiomatic linguistic phrases that we can generate rhythm with it and making rhythmic processes, and also we can access to outer form and inner form structure without really going into big statics terms. The folk tale used having three main sections, and you can see like there was the unexpected journey by a fisherman to an island, and it was stormy and windy, and then there was a greeting sentence of the island folks, and then there was a journey back home. And let me share with you how Amr was really impressed by the interpretation of the performer. In this workshop in 2018, it was a 3-day only, and they never really met the performer.
يتكلم الكاميرا مخدود انت ايه بتفكر هو ازاي قدر يعرف انت عاوز ايه؟ لانك عملت هنا الارنب وهو حس بيك ان انت عاوز تطولها شويه. ده حلو ولا اخليه اقصرها؟ حلو. طيب والجزء بقى بتاع الايقاع؟ طب اكتر حاجه عجبتك؟
And here Nahla was so impressed by the middle section, which has the rhythmic, but also she was impressed with how he began.
طيب وايه رايك في البدايه؟ او عمل لك تي تا 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 عجبتك؟ خالص وعمل لك الارنب صح؟ سريع صح؟ وبعدين في الاخر لانها خلص هو عارف ان ندى ما لحقتش تكمل فراح مبطأ في الاخر كده كاننا بنهدي القطر صح؟ عجبتك؟ طب اكتر حاجه عجبتك ايه؟ الصوت ده بتاع انت عارف
but Muhammad was really like, you know, so critical of the performance. You can see how he has like very complex settings in the score, and he was
حلوه بس انت ايه في حاجات انت ما كنتش عاوزها كده انت عامل اشارات كتيره وساعات بتخفي اشارات صح؟ كنت عاوزه اقول ازاي طيب؟
عشان ده انا كنت رافع الصوت جه هنا طخن الصوت وانا كنت عاوزه
طب خلاص انا هقول له
So in the current workshop, we are trying now to do the full program, not just testing the pedagogy. It should be 12 sessions. We are in the 4th session. And now we're getting to the more elaborative of the rhythmic section and mixing it with the relative range or pitch. We have the cellist with us in each session. And this is Fairuz, 10 years old, and she did this pam pa pa pa, pam pa pa pa, and on the A and C strings of the cello, while Zina, at 11 years old, when she did her motive and she actually pointed this from the right to left, she did a mirroring without actually knowing it was a mirroring, but this is why the visual aid is very important. This is like the first draft of a 3-section music piece, and we are going to listen from the middle section, which is like the more complex. While Adam is 12 years old and he has really very static rhythmic and free setup of it, even he knows the motive or the pattern. So what next in the 12 sessions? We want just to go and try to have group of notes that have tonality that attach to the folk music of Egypt, like pentatonic or microtonal bayati. Also, they need to develop their painting colored skills, so we have more music output that is developed in giving a concert. Thank you. And back to you, Emily.
Thank you very much, Nahla. So we come to the pickings from the playground in Kenya. And I want to present some, all right. Am I sharing my screen?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. There were 2 projects that I would want to present briefly about. The African Music Education Project, supported by SEMPRE first and then ISME, which covered Kenya, South Africa, and Zambia. And we wanted to know what teachers brought to school. And we wanted to consolidate the children's song material for use within the school. We looked at the procedures that were used for teaching the songs, and these were procedures that were derived from the indigenous practices, heavily rote learning, and that incorporated a lot of play and children taking turns, starring roles, and we brought those into the classroom to allow the children to experience the playground within the classroom. And we noted that when we used these songs, they enhanced children's cultural and aesthetic content and concept development. That was the first program. And then we moved on to the Music for Literacy development, which took place in Kenya. Again, the use of local children's song repertoire, a lot of singing games, a lot of activity songs that the children normally engage in. And we brought this to the classroom and had the teacher engage the students in performing these. In the process, we developed the teacher's capacity to improvise, to adapt. For example, setting new text to old tunes so that they could use these songs to enhance learning in other areas of the curriculum as well. We also relied heavily on play as the principle behind learning. The significance of play is that the children are no longer self-conscious about this strange material that they need to learn, that they need to master. We took advantage of music as a multimodal medium of communication. What do I mean by multimodal? Several types of symbols that require several senses to decode. So three concepts that came out very clearly from here: spontaneity. We took advantage of children's willingness to try. Children just get up and do something without necessarily thinking too much about it. And especially when there are games and they have an opportunity to star. Then role play. Children learned by doing. The starring roles that are embedded in the singing games and the activity songs gave children an opportunity to develop self-confidence. And then the songs also encouraged socialization. Finally, leadership skills. The children looked at the teacher as a leader, as a role model. And in the workshops that we had to instill these in the teachers who were very shy about using music because they were not trained music teachers. Again, also, the learners as peer leaders. And it was encouraging to see that when a new child was asked to take a leadership role, the others encouraged them and showed them how to do it. So in conclusion, from the 5 countries, when music educators advocate for the use of resources that are familiar to the child, it is evident that they need the learners to be secure in the cultural environment. And we see from Malaysia, the responses of the children, especially the 10-year-old who said that they had never been exposed to the Malay kind of music, and they discovered that it can be used for teaching, or it can be played at different levels of proficiency. And that is encouraging because the children then, or the learners, become secure in their cultural environment. We also realized that music teaching is a socializing and cultural enterprise. Look at the Egyptian children. I mean, it is exciting to hear what Mohammed was saying. Music teachers also carefully select and appropriate resources for facilitating concept assimilation and skills development for and in music, whether it is for performance or for composition. I like what Michel is doing in terms of the different indigenous resources. And you can see that from Ghana, there is such a deliberate effort to look for local or indigenous Ghanaian resources. Finally, the indigenous or the folk resources are very valuable. They are culture-laden, there is knowledge, and it is a pack that teachers can apply in the classrooms so that learners are advantaged. We wish to thank you for listening to us, and we hope that as you engage with this recording on the ISME YouTube channel, you will be able to perhaps add something of your own or contact us for further discussion. Thank you very much. And I now ask colleagues if we could just switch on our videos and say a final bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.
It does.
Okay.